All right, what's up, everybody? Wall Street Jesus here. The Tuesday post-game Degenerate show, whatever new name we got to it. Are you guys having fun yet? I want to know if the Bulls are officially having fun yet. That's my question. And if you're not getting full enjoyment out of it, close your eyes and just feel the pain if you were sitting short throughout this whole rip. All right? So if you're not getting enough enjoyment out of this rally and you're bullish and have been bullish, could be worse. Could be a lot worse. But all kidding aside, we don't need to go over the same things over and over and over again. We've been talking on the last few webinars how finally the flow has been looking solid. Names, a lot of different names have been getting attacked on the call sweeper side. I brought up the point, we were talking about it again today in the room. I know it sounds corny, right? Because everything's about dollars and cents in this game, but my watch list, all right, and for somebody who enjoys the game, likes keeping an eye on things, enjoys the strategy, and this is what we were talking about earlier, if I rewind back to the summer, okay, I think I had probably tops 3 or 4 names that I would keep an eye on to see if there was a pullback and sweepers would come and revisit. It was pathetic. Without a doubt, you can count on one hand my watch list throughout the summer, last summer, okay? And as we, got through the summer into October, then the whole market corrected as a whole. Obviously, there was not much sweeper activity, right, throughout that correction on the call side. So, my watch list has pretty much consisted of nothing from last summer up until the recent lows. Okay, so forgive me if I'm taking a second to appreciate that for the last couple of weeks, at least I have names on my screen that I come in and look at on a day-to-day basis and see, again, if they're pulling back, consolidating, maybe sweeper activities coming in off a pullback, and that'll be a name I'm looking towards to day trade, to swing trade. Anyway, my watch list now is as long as it's ever been in quite a while. All right. And that right there, from my experience, is usually a pretty bullish sign. Okay. Because it tells us that the aggressive money in the option market, right? The smart money, as we like to call them, they're taking on more risk, right? You hear the old saying, risk on, all right? When we're seeing sweeper activity like we're seeing right now in a plethora of different names and different sectors, all right, that's a really bullish sign. And, that's why I keep trying to get you guys to look at the sweeper activity, whether you're trading those specific names or not, because it tells us, and, that's why, we're biased, but we believe it supplies such a big edge in this game, okay? Because in real time, we're getting a good look on how, again, the professionals out there who know a lot more than you and I, that doesn't mean they get it right all the time, okay? But they have a lot more information, a lot more resources than you and I, okay? When they're aggressively sweeping multiple names out there consistently, and they're willing to take that added risk, it tells us a lot about the environment, okay? And, we pointed this out, if you remember, on the last couple of webinars. The significance of it is, if you think of some of the, sharp money, the funds out there that we refer to when we talk about this stuff, they're not just playing in the options market, right? The option market for them is a way of hedging their size positions, okay, and a way to take advantage of a little leverage, okay? That's the way they look at the options market. So it's not like, a lot of us or a lot of you guys out there who are just trading solely options and that's it. All right. So if you think about it and think of it logically, the significance in that, when they are willing to take that added risk, when they're willing to go above and beyond and speculate in addition to what they're probably already doing as far as positioning is concerned, okay, it just, again, it's confidence. It's confidence. All right. And what I've liked about this round of activity throughout this rally, as opposed to, any of the rallies that we saw in the correction, because again, if you remember, we went over, what type of action we were seeing throughout the correction, even when the market was squeezing and rallying, right? And you heard me say time and time again, before the rallies failed, okay, that at that point in time, based off the flow I'm seeing, it was spec money, right? They're playing weeklies, cheap stuff, small contract stuff. They're painting the picture like they're just riding their momentum. They're playing for the squeeze. Mostly ETF stuff, mostly high beta stuff, the same names over and over and over again. All right. And that's what we were seeing. Let me get a daily up. So on these particular rallies I'm talking about, right? So we would hit a low, sentiment would get to an extreme, right? There would be put buying, and then all of a sudden we see a day where the flow flipped, right? We see some signs out of the flow. All of a sudden, a day of put sweepers galore all over the place. All of a sudden we would see a decent Facebook order come in, right? Then a Netflix order after that. Then a SPY order after that, right? Or a DIA sweeper we were salivating over. Think about that. We were salivating over that DIA, which is the ETF of the Dow, for those of you who may not know. We were salivating over that dude, not only because he's been money on squeezes, right? Giving us a heads up on squeezes, but that was as good as it got then, as compared to now. Like, if it wasn't for Tim in the room, option trader in the room, from time to time I forget about that dude. That's because now they're sweeping so much of everything else. Like if that DIA sweeper hit the board now, okay, and I know you guys are probably saying, nah, you're nuts, but I'm being honest. It wouldn't have as big as an impact as it did back then. Okay, because back then it stood out like a sore thumb. Nobody was rolling the dice call sign on anything. So when that guy stepped up to the plate, right, we felt a little good about playing for a squeeze. Now, we're seeing flow in so many different places that what is he telling us? There's a squeeze out there. There's a risk on theme out there. You know what I mean? Yeah, well, the DIA, Mike, there was each and every squeeze, I think, honestly, it was, what's funny about that DIA guy? Not to get off on a different topic, but now that you ask, he was at this low here. I think he was in this low here. And I don't know if he showed up into these lows. Is that ironic or what? We basically saw everything else but him. Yeah, and he would play the downside too. He would. He would go on and flip to the put side, and we knew that was case closed for that squeeze. All right, but fast forward now, all right, and, he stood out like a sore thumb then. Now, there are so many different names, and that's why a lot of people, like they say, you'll hear them say, oh, this resembles 2008, or this resembles 2001, and to this point, it doesn't. Okay, to this point, from the lows to now, it's night and day, flow-wise. Okay, in 2008, there still was an impressive call activity out there, no matter what the market was doing, up, down, sideways, crooked. Here is pretty evident that people are positioning and have been positioning in the right things. They're not just solely focusing on, names to take advantage of because of a squeeze, right? They're buying healthy software names and they're bombing Conagra, right? They're buying, they're unloading on a DHI, which fits the bill, right? Home builders bottoming, everything we spoke about. But also, going ballistic on a Netflix. Okay, and the other good thing I like too is that they're going ballistic on a Netflix, but they're, at the same time, they're not going ballistic on the whole FANG complex. All right, and even though the whole FANG complex may lift with the market and Netflix, it's better looking action when they're starting to concentrate on specific names like this. And again, the key is multiple names. You have your choice now, right? You have your choice. Okay. You feel like playing momentum, you could go to some of the hot software names, for that quick trade play momentum. You want to build a position, of maybe greater size with a longer leash, you can go to a home builder, right, which hasn't rallied off a pullback and do that. So you have your choices there. You have your choices. And that's when you're in a bullish climate, that's what you see. Okay. And I know how it is, especially I used to get hung up on that as a trader for the early stages of my career. When's it end, right? When's it over? Like, everybody wants the answer to the question, okay, well, based on the flow, does that mean that's it? We bottomed? We bottomed already. We bottomed. If you're just going to come to that conclusion right now and join the party, I mean, think about what you didn't participate in. All right, so I look at it and have been looking at it differently for a long time, for at least the second half of my career, because I would miss the sweet spot, as we call it. The way I look at it is this, and those of you who are members know it sounds like a broken record because we were talking about that over the past couple of weeks. As long as they continue to come in and sweep up new names aggressively or names off pullbacks, okay, we are bullish. It's that simple. Okay, so we had this dip here, right? Now, how do we know, where this dip is going to end up? People are calling for a retest of new lows. You hear everything out there. How do you know where this pullback ends? For me, there's nothing else to base it off of. Okay, even like, for example, sentiment. If I'm going to wait for each and every pause throughout a rally to flash a bullish signal on the sentiment side, I'm going to be extremely selective. Okay, because sometimes you get a market like this where you get minor pullbacks along the way. And if you're waiting for, the bears to get to an extreme, you don't have another entry until that point comes. So the way I look at it and the way I approach it is exactly how I've explained it to you and we've been talking about for several weeks now. Okay, every time we get a pause, every time sellers step in, and no matter what this market does, there are going to be some sellers along the way. Okay, no matter what. And it wouldn't shock me the bulls at some point get punched in the jaw or some headline, some news, trade war, God knows. There's enough crap out there for the bulls to take one on the jaw, okay? But what will be telling when that does occur, what do the buyers do? Okay? What do the call sweepers do when that happens? Do they climb under a rock like they did throughout the summer, throughout the correction, and just not buy anything or continue to roll up in the same names that have already rallied here? Okay, if they do that, to me, that signals caution. All right, that signals caution. But if they do like they just did recently, right? They buy Conagra, they buy DHI, they buy EW, they buy some software stuff. If they do that on these little pullbacks or little dips, that tells us that we don't even have to rely on the overall market. You know, that's another huge plus that I have to talk about before we start getting into names and all that other stuff you like. This whole correction, if you guys remember me telling you guys that sweepers, what they're sweeping, what they're buying is just not that important. And some of you couldn't believe I was actually saying that. But the reason being was that if the market was going to squeeze, you were better off writing ES or an ETF or a high beta name, because at least you had the confidence that that name would squeeze with the market. All right, because some of these squeezes were short-lived. So if you were looking for flow in Conagra, let's say, right? Let's say one of these squeezes happened to have a Conagra buyer, and you bought Conagra, and the market squeezed, and Conagra didn't squeeze with it, which can happen often. Okay, once the market rolls over and takes everything lower again, you're dead. All right, so we had to rely heavily on the indices, okay, because everything was correlated. Everything was moving up and down together, right? The market went up, nine and a half out of 10 stocks went up with it. The market went down, same shit. So the difference now is that when you see this type of broad activity, I mean, I'll be honest with you guys. You guys know, up until today, where we had this big day, I wasn't even looking at the markets. I had no idea what the indices were doing until I checked in the afternoon. Okay, because the last thing I want to do is get caught up on what the market may be doing. As long, you know, if they're sweeping individual names, you know, maybe there's rotation out there, which we saw a couple of those days, right? They were rotating into some healthcare names. I forgot what other group was there. There was energy yesterday, right? So you see days of rotation. All right, so that's the beauty of the flow when it's this broad and this aggressive. Okay, we don't have to rely on the market, and we can find outperformance in individual names when maybe the overall market needs to breathe, and some of these hot names need to breathe. All right, so those are the things to keep an eye on from this point forward. The same thing, you know, the pause days, the pullback days are the more telling days. Those are the days where when you see the action, you want to look to get long or something. Okay, not today into the ding dong off a rally like this. All right, and granted, the markets may follow through tomorrow. There's a ton of juice out there off of the day, off of the session like today. Okay, so there may be, you know, a follow through and you can flip it. All right, but if you're not that quick, you don't want to be a buyer on days like today. You want to be a buyer, and you may not think it's a big deal, but trust me, when you put your money to work, you'll see how big of a deal it is. You want to be a buyer on these days. All right, that's where you want to be a buyer. For me personally, I like to buy the names, the fresh names that they're buying into those pauses and pullbacks. But I know many traders that I've traded around who have been successful that they don't need to see action in their names. Okay, so what I mean by that is, as long as the flow is what it needs to be and they're sweeping initial names, if they like, let's say, Netflix for more upside, even though the action, the sharpest activity out there at that point in time is not Netflix, but Netflix already got bombed and littered with buyers prior to that. I know many traders who would just buy Netflix on the pull. You know what I mean? So each and every one of us is different. But that's where you got to look. And here's why. Okay, here's another point why. I see it way too often, and then the individual scratches their head and wonders, why they're caught in a pullback. No matter, and there's no good or bad. If you're gonna buy after a move like this, okay, you see this move here. If you're gonna buy on 6, 7, that's where you're looking to buy off of this lift, where the action started prior to that. Okay, if you're buying 6 and 7 and you get stuck in something like this, if you're going to stop yourself out there, you're going to have a tough time of things. You're going to have a tough time of things. Okay, if you're buying on day 6 and 7 and these pullbacks, these pauses, they don't bother you because you have enough time or you're prepared for it, you're adding into it, whatever it may be. Okay, then that's a different story. That's your prerogative. But you can't buy on days like 6 and 7 and then eventually get caught in something like this and get stopped out and take a loss. All right, because if the market's still strong and chances are this name caught legitimate action, when it follows through like a day like today, you're going to be sick. You're going to be sick. Here we sorted this one. I got a lot of questions on. Okay, OSTK. The action in OSTK, okay, and a lot of you know this because a lot of you are still in it off the initial activity. The action started down here, right? That's where the OSTK put selling and sweeper activity started up. If you're going to buy OSTK here, and this pullback here is something you're getting panicky over, frustrated about, and getting stopped out of, I mean, think about that logically for a second. Like, take a step back and look at OSTK. Does anything look different here? We know this is a crazy name. Hence why I don't like to ever buy green in the stock. I don't care where she is. For a day trade, swing trade, I can never get myself to buy green in this thing. Okay, because I know that, if I buy on an up day, she can easily pull back that day $1. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to stop myself out? I didn't even give myself a legitimate shot to win there. All right, so that's why I'm a big proponent of buying off of these pullbacks, because you guys like to pull the cord quick. You get jumpy when there's some weakness, and it's just totally normal. Not every market's 2017 when there's just not even a pause in these things and they just continue higher. And I get the rebuttal. There's software names that go up every day. I get it, but that's not everything out there. You can't treat everything out there the same way. Or like a ZS, let's say. Same thing, right? We spoke about it. The sweep was as good as you can get in ZS. All right, but at the same time, ZS also had action this whole trip up. So if you're going to buy on the 9er day here and not expect some sort of breather at the least, my point is, if you're going to stop yourself out of a breather like this and you're buying up here, then you need to change your playbook. It's not for you. It's not for you. And how you could fix that would be buy names that are in consolidation, right? That are in chop, that aren't doing anything. And, those are my favorite plays because the risk reward on them is favorable. Not only the risk reward, but your downside, right? If you're buying in consolidation and that thing falls through a trap door and you want to stop yourself out there, you have something to be alarmed over. But, like ZS, you look at this chart, did anything here tell you that something was wrong with this name, this little pull off a niner, this, you go back and look. These things breathe. All right. So just because the flow has been spectacular and the price action out there has been spectacular, at the same time, you got to be careful chasing extended rallies. If you're day trading bright green stuff, where you're looking for a bigger move and you're going to get stopped out on a reversal. Anybody have any questions on any of this stuff? And if you're new to the game, right? You're a new player in this game and you still can't figure out what I'm trying to explain to you, please speak up. You can't be ashamed, okay? Because I'm telling you from experience, and now that I'm in the Steam room, I see it more than ever. A lot of traders just they put themselves behind the 8 ball before they didn't give them a shot. They didn't give themselves a shot. Good question. Mike is saying, why do I post small sweeps? Right? Sometimes you see me post $15,000, $20,000 sweepers. And Mike's mentioning, why would anybody care about something so small? A lot of us, Mike, believe it or not, care a lot about sweepers like that. Okay? One, because some of the biggest action out there will get set off by a $20,000 sweep. Okay? Some of the hottest momentum intraday will get set off by a $20,000 sweep. All right, so if you're a day trader, you should pay attention to each and every sweep that I'm talking about. Each and every sweep. Because, and I'll tell you this, Michael, because it's a good question. You pull up an intraday chart the next time you see me post a $15,000 sweep or $20,000 sweep, okay, and you will get the answer to your question right there and then. Because you will see a reaction from the market makers off a $20,000 sweep that you wouldn't see sometimes off $1 million block. All right. And again, especially now, this day and age with the algo sweeps, Mikkel, we see a lot of times, we see an algo, okay, which is a straight up machine that's programmed to sift news out there. Okay. We'll see an algo sweep for 15 grand. And then a couple other sweeps follow that. The stock halts and then opens up $10 higher. Okay, so for me, and I think, that's where a lot of us in the Steam room, private Twitter have an edge, is that when you're paying attention to all of that, and obviously it's a lot, right? I mean, if you saw what the hell I was looking at on a day-to-day basis, you wouldn't think it was normal. But that's our edge, okay? Because we're going to pick up on any momentum that may generate over the course of a day as early as anybody out there, and a lot earlier than most. All right, but your point, a $15,000 bet in itself means nothing, but it could be the start of a hell of a lot more than that, and it usually is. All right, but yeah, take a peek the next time. Again, not one. The next time you see any small sweep that you normally would be like, why would I even look at this? Pull up just even a 1 minute chart, pull up a 1 minute chart and you will see instant momentum off that name. Yeah, without a doubt, especially early in the day, sometimes before the bell, and then you'll see them come after a name at the open the next morning. It's just a heads up on something bigger on the horizon. Doesn't always turn into that. But like I said, you will see instant momentum, even a small order, the market makers, and that's where the reaction comes from. If you're wondering, if you guys are new and wondering what the hell am I talking about, what I mean is you'll see a $25,000 bet, okay? And because that market maker wants nothing to do, even with that measly 25 grand, he hedges that risk off, okay? And by doing that, you'll see a spike in volume and instant momentum in whatever name that sweep was in, because that market maker is already prepared and worried about an avalanche of action coming in. Okay, they're not stupid at this point. You know, they know it could be just a feeler and a decoy from a wise guy, and they want no part of that. All right, anybody else? Sean's asking, as of the data hedge fund chart you posted. Yeah, Sean, again, there's a lag there. There's a lag. I think the date of that chart was the 6th. Sean's referring to the hedge fund exposure thing we've been keeping an eye on. So basically, you know, hedge funds and mom and pop have wanted nothing to do with this rally. Zero. Okay? They're non-believers. Non-believers. And there have been a lot of non-believers in this rally. And that's a good thing. A beautiful thing. As mentioned, the hedge funds basically have no exposure to this market, and when you see days like today, that's usually a sign that they're coming back in. The problem with that chart is that it lags by at least 2 days every time. There's nothing. I think it's the way they report, Sean. I don't think there's anything that we can do about that. It lags by a couple days. So sometimes, you know, you get late info. All right. So we'll see when it does update. You know, if we see a big spike there, then we know, you know, they're getting back in. Now, once they do get back in, Sean, and we see that spike to the other side, we got to be careful there. You know, because that's usually when you finally get that bigger pause. I'm not talking about a crash. I'm not talking about new lows, but I'm talking about, you know, a larger pause than what we've had. See, in my opinion, and we spoke about this, I think the reason this market has been behaving like this is because everybody and their mother was looking for a pullback, right? The bears think this is a bear market rally, full confidence, right? The bulls, even the most bullish bulls, are looking for a retest of the lows, okay? And now what you've had are even bulls like us, right, that have been ready for this rally, are in the midst of participating in this rally, who want a freaking pullback, right? We want a pullback for an entry. So think about that now. Those three I just mentioned to you, all are on the pullback side. And from my experience, when in this market, when everybody's on the same page and looking for the same thing, you never get it. You never get it. All right. But everything else, guys, that we've been talking about, everything else that we were hoping to see, we're seeing. Remember, we were talking about how the news was still going to be bad, you know, but bad news would be good news. You know, any added good news would be good news. See, that was part of the problem we were facing going into October. Okay? If we got any additional positive news, the Fed was going to get aggressive with tightening, right? So good news would have been bad news back then. All right. And then we had, if we got bad news, the Fed is wrecking the economy by tightening. So there was a no-win situation there. You understand? And what changed now with Mr. Powell doing a complete, you talk about flip-flop, my goodness, in a matter of weeks, okay? What basically goes on now is that we know that no matter how bad the news is, the worse the news is, the more aggressive the Fed is going to be now in the bull's corner. All right? And, you know, any good news, because now the slowdown is out there. You're hearing everybody talk about a recession, right? You hear everybody talking about a slowdown in earnings. Any positive news doesn't automatically equate into the Fed doing more tightening. Not yet, anyway, right? So that's the change in the environment. And the good thing is, as we went into earnings season, for probably the first time throughout this bull market, well, throughout the last couple of years, they were looking to earnings as a negative, right? As a bad news scenario. They were looking towards earnings season. So you had the semis coming in, and we all knew, everybody knew, their earnings are miserable, right? That's why these stocks got hammered. So what happens? They report bad earnings. It's already factored in. They lift anyway. Okay? They report not as bad as expected. They squeeze hard anyway. They report disasters. They squeeze. You know what I mean? Win, win, win. Ani, if you're out there, what we're seeing now is what you and I were talking about. Remember when you asked me, why are you looking forward to earnings season? That's why. You know, that's why. If we got, for example, you get any weakness off, you know, a beaten down name off earnings, that's a buy setup, right? Especially we see flow. So you had a lot of things line up in the Bulls camp, because bearishness, for one reason, well, two reasons. Bearishness got to an extreme that we haven't seen in a long, long time. And Powell finally got in the Bulls' corner. They had doubts. The Bears out there said Powell never will. He's different. He's not Bernanke. He's not yelling. Well, let's just say that bet went south. All right, so we'll see. I mean, from my experience, and that's all I can gauge it on, guys, right? Because you know me, I'm not in the forecast business. I try not to forecast. Anytime I try to forecast, I get myself in trouble. So it's a complete waste of time. But from my experience, this lingers. This doesn't go away off a squeeze. Okay? Like, where eventually there's going to be a pullback bigger than what we're seeing. Okay? But the difference is, I think the smart money, they're going to put money to work in those pullbacks. Now, with the Fed not working against them, the whole fight the Fed line, you hear a lot, right? Don't fight the Fed. Now, without fighting the Fed, there should be buyers on any pullback we see, especially in some of these sectors that could be turning around. You know, like the semis, you see what's going on with these things. If there's one negative, and it's a big one, right? A lot of us are frustrated about, and I think it's just the market we're going to be in forever, guys. There's no changing it. Shit's too fast. It's too fast. Right? We could be talking on a webinar about eyeing the semiconductors, and before the words come out of our mouth, you got a day or two to put some money to work. That's how quick it happens. Right? As soon as the street saw the reaction of LRCX, that's it. Yeah, and the machines are only getting faster. You're right, Paul. That's why I used to say, oh, maybe it's just, the current state right now that we're in, just things are going too fast. I've been saying that for a while now. And like Paul's saying, they just get quicker and quicker. So it used to be that you would get like this uptrend type of move out of this. Now, their machines programmed for this shit that they don't allow that to happen. They just plow in. And that's why on the flip side, we see down moves like we did. Look, right? The playbook was to get out of semis. Look what they did, Paul. They wiped these things out. Right? The playbook was to sell semis, no matter good news, bad news, or whatever news was out there on these semiconductors. They got destroyed. Remember Micron couldn't find an up day? Remember that? Like no matter what Micron did, right? Upgrade, the stock would pop up off the open, sellers, boom. Because the playbook was to sell the semis, and all the machines are programmed, right? All these CTAs are all programmed to sell the semis, and that's what you get. And, all the retail and professionals out there scratching their head, but Micron's trading at 5 times earnings. There's value. The machines don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. That's why we like that McElliott dude. Because he's talking real market stuff. He's not talking, 1980s Dow Jones stuff. This is a different world right now. So yeah, anyway, at some point, these things are going to get a little overdone. There's going to be some selling. There's going to be enough selling to rile up the bears. I can promise you that. They're going to get excited. They're going to think the rally's over. Okay? There'll be some pullbacks in these things that feel a lot worse than they are, but considering they've rallied so hard, and I mean, for me, and if you're a believer of flow, we got one job, and that's just to keep an eye on the call sweeper activity into that. Okay? It doesn't show up for a couple days. We can't get discouraged. All right? Because it can show up at any time during that pullback, and that would be, believe it or not, a secondary entry that far away. A legitimate secondary entry where you got a decent risk reward, put it that way. Yeah, now Gordon, that's the problem. That's the problem now when you get these type of moves. And this is what we were talking about. You got to know who you are, what type of trader you are. Okay, I'll give you an example. NXPI, right? We were talking about this recently because there were Jan missiles in the thing Friday. Remember? Right? We were talking about this NXPI. And we said, listen, if you're a trader, right? If you're looking for that trade, okay, you can buy these things here off dips. Okay, you get a little pullback in NXPI and there's a Jan missile. You can buy it and playing for that nice bounce back rally, right? The problem is what Gordon's saying, okay? If you're going to buy Jans and you're looking for another move like this per se, you probably have to wait on a longer consolidation than this. Right, Gordon? I think that's what you're getting at here. Okay? You still can be a tactical trader in all these things off pullbacks, all of them. But what Gordon's pointing out is you want to see, you want to see some consolidation, right? You want to see NXPI may top out here, come back in here, bounce around, chop around, and then set up a leg higher. Okay, and that, to Gordon's point, that's the risk if you're buying here looking for that bigger move in some of these things. Yeah, that goes for like all the software names too. I mean, some of the early ones, you would have caught a big move like this, right? I mean, they all went bananas. Look at this. Okay, but if you're looking to buy a coupe and you're buying it up here, not just for a quick trade, but for another leg higher, the odds aren't in your favor. It could happen with coupe, but the odds of everything out there doing the same thing, they're not in your favor. So listen, to me, no matter what, there's enough tactical stuff out there if you're an options player where you don't have to necessarily look for that home run trade. And Gordon, if you want the home run trade, you have to look at stuff like this. You know what I mean? Because what happens is, and what should happen, God only knows, but if some of the hot stuff does cool off, there's a good possibility they rotate money into, a lot of value names, a lot of laggards. So that's, I'm like you, the stuff I'm going to give time to, right? Like DHI, which didn't, you know what I mean? I'm buying DHI. And this is what we're talking about, like what Gordon's saying. If you get an NXPI consolidation over the next month and a half, 2 months like this, that's what you're looking for. You know what I mean? That's what you're looking for. Okay. So if you're like Gordon and you're looking for that higher risk reward where you can be patient, I just think you have to look towards the right action, the right names. You can't buy names that have just gone parabolic and are deep into the sweeper activity. Disney, well, I haven't looked at Disney. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. Now, again, for me, if Disney catches aggressive buying, but to your point, this is something that when the software and tech names and some of the other stuff that has gotten out of control, when they need to cool off, you can see a massive rotation into this stuff, and that will hold up the market as well. And how quickly we forget. You remember what the lifeline of this bull market has been over the years? Okay, it wasn't the Fed and all that stuff. That's all meaningless stuff. Whether it's true or not, who cares? You can't make any money off that. All right, so you don't pay attention to that stuff. But the true lifeline of this whole bull market was the constant rotation. Rotation. Tech got too hot. They needed to breathe. They let tech breathe. They'd go into biotech. Biotech heat up. They need to breathe. They rotate into the banks. Right? Banks heated up. They need to take a breather. They go into the home builders and energy. That constant rotation is what prevented a correction from 2016 all the way up to October. And we may see something similar to that on the way up out of this. All right, but you don't want to forget about the hot growth names, no matter how hot they are. Doesn't mean you have to buy them. I talk about all these names constantly. I'm not in any of them right now. The reason I talk about them is because anytime you get pullbacks and breathers, and while the whole retail riffraff crowd has been shaken out of them and want nothing to do, that's where you need to start looking at them again, because the likelihood is that's the new batch of leadership. You know, the Coops of the world, the ZSs of the world, all those nut jobs. What's Twilio doing, by the way? What's she doing? Down? Was it down? $5? 111. Meh. Got a little pullback in Twilio. Probably good. Twilio. Probably good for a day trade if we see any action tomorrow into weakness. Another one doesn't really catch a lot of action, this one, unfortunately. Hubs. I think I saw that down. Look at this move in Hubs. Where is she? Hubs is down 170. Peanuts. Peanuts. These things, they don't go down. That RNG, I thought was going to be red today. I saw it in the after hours. It opened up 10, this RNG. All right. The other one, Ellie, she got bought out. These things are monsters. Monsters. Mime. That was another one we looked at. Remember, MIME? Look at this. Absolute monsters, these things. Monsters. North is saying McDonald's, too. Let's see, Mickey D's. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You know, and we've been seeing little bits and pieces of like these rotation type names. The only issue, well, it's not an issue, but the thing that's kind of disguised them is that the hot names still have juice. They haven't pulled back, you know, but we saw like CVX, right? Catch some buying. A couple of those energy names, right? Hess, a couple of you guys played those names. So some rotation into energy. You know, biotech here and there catches rotated. There was a nice, this name here, TNDM. If it didn't have earnings, this would have been an unbelievable setup. This was nice. See this TNDM? Crazy move. Consolidation. Totally normal. This is totally normal, this long consolidation after a parabolic move like this. Look at that. All right? So then she runs into a niner. Nice, choppy pause. Still no sellers. And then sweeper activity to give us a heads up that she's coming out. And, you know, the problem is you got earnings the end of the month where you got to, if you get the pop, you got to take it. Because if you get caught in the pullback, you know, you got earnings in the way. That's the problem. Yeah, NIO. I own NIO. I own the equity. I got a nice price, cheap price, so I'm not looking to add unless I get back down there. But I'm tucking it away type of thing, Sean, you know? Otherwise, I'll never catch a move in this thing if it ever comes. I got issues on the sell side. Like the DHI, you know how hard that was for me not to sell it today? You don't understand how difficult that was for me not to sell today. And I got August. You know, we'll see. I'll probably end up selling it tomorrow like an idiot. I can't help it. You know? Yeah, Gordon, I want to, I don't have any other home builder. See, I bought Lennar and I bought Beazer initially. And I said to myself, I was going to hold on to them. Okay. This was into the lows, Gordon, into the lows. Okay. Ask me if I have anything in those two names. Zero. I sold them both. Okay. So then when the DHI action came into a pullback, I said, oh man, this is like a gift from the gods now. I got an entry into a home builder, off a pullback, some breather. August, they were bombing. Nice time. So, but now the problem is going to be holding on to it, you know? Yeah, maybe that's what I'll do. Look to unload a piece, maybe half, and keep some. But yeah, again, it's just that's my screws. You know what I mean? My screws are off. I got some screws loose when it comes to that stuff. You bored me on this in the AM for a few months. Mike saying a true degenerate. He bought something in the AM and then he was going to hold it for a few months. He sold it at noon. I've been there, buddy. I've been there. All right, but yeah. So as far as any action, a lot of this stuff today, guys, a lot of the top action was in names that already had top action, and they just exploded. Netflix this morning they came after pretty aggressively again. Netflix by far the top Fang name, the only Fang name with aggressive activity at this point is Netflix. DHI, crazy action again today. We spoke about that. They hit Conagra again, CAG, quite a few times. She's had a nice couple day lift there. What else do we have today? But nothing really new. Nothing new. And rarely do we get fresh names, fresh missiles off a day like today, you know? Today's a day, a lot of rolling, and they press bets in a lot of stuff. What else? Oh, I played this. I think a couple of you guys played it with me, this EW. Nice move out of that. I got a couple names. Well, here's a couple names that I have. I'm looking at my screen now. So here's one name. I got some common. I might buy April's in this snap off a breather here. Obviously, you're probably saying you bought Snap. Yeah, based off the action, I bought Snap. This is not my ideal spot. You guys know that, but hopefully you breathe. If you could breathe a couple of days, hang around there. I'm looking at nothing crazy. Just buy a little of the Aprils. But I like the sweeper activity there. If she was in a better spot, like right here or something, I would open it up a little bit. But that's a name you can eye on this consolidation here. What else? I mean, OSTK is off the highs, but I wouldn't say has pulled back enough for a swing. But for a day trade, if they hit it into red, I would definitely keep an eye on that. And let me see. I'm going to look through the action tonight, too, because there was a lot of flow out there. Let's see. Hold on. Oh, you know what they were buying this afternoon again? We forgot about it again because there's so much action out there. This was one of the few names that was catching action in the correction. PCG. I think they got earnings the end of the month. And mid-afternoon, they started sweeping this PCG. And believe it or not, highest point off that niner now. I know a couple of you guys have some calls with time there, so that's looking good. I got a couple questions about energy names. For the most part, they were up today. This Hess, anytime you see flow into red there, a pullback, it's worth taking a peek at if you like to play these energy names. This is one of their favorite to buy on pullbacks. CVX has seen some nice activity. That name yesterday, nothing huge, but saw some sweeper activity. APC. Oh, that closed down? Oh, up a little bit. But a name to keep an eye on, this APC. What else? The Caterpillar had a nice day. Mostly rolling, nothing extravagant over there. I still think this Caterpillar has upside. I haven't seen anything like Caterpillar could catch beauties, beauties. Like I've seen some of the best looking sweeps in Cat We haven't seen any of those yet, but there's been buying. There's definitely, since the gap down, there was buying into earnings, if you remember. But that's obviously earnings flow, and then they came back after it on the gap down. But she's still alive. Like, if she hangs around in here and catches one of those like $800,000 million missiles, definitely worth a look. Definitely worth a look. What else? Did any of you guys? I heard that MHK off of earnings, the options did nothing. Did those MHK calls move at all yet? Sean's asking about UVXY sweeps. I don't remember any sweeps there, Sean. Today? Oh, blocks. Yeah, the puts. The puts? Probably just it could be, Sean, they're just replacing some February exposure. I think they were blocks. Yeah. Tough to trust the block, Sean. Especially this week, guys. You know me now. I'm at the point where I don't trust blocks, period. Like, it's gotten to that point. But this week, be careful with the blocks. A lot of February stuff is going to get replaced. I had the September MHKs, had a nice V. Oh, IV was lower. Good night. That's a nice heads up there, George. See, that's a nice heads up. Yeah, because that's what annoys me about earnings. You know, you get a half decent move, and you still can't make money on these things. Come on now. But I think this thing still squeezes. No, George? I think she still squeezes. Yeah, maybe pause here and there. But you got, you're out of the Septembers? Yeah, so those of you who are still in it, I think she still has upside there. You know, the other one too, what's she been doing? Masco. Look at this. This one's a nice move too, MAS. They all had nice moves. All right, but again, listen, as far as I could see, we were going into the bell a little bit hot on the sentiment front. You don't need to be Einstein to know that, right? So we may get a pause at some point into red. Let's see what they buy, right? Let's see what they buy. From what I can see, there are still some things out there that are alive, that can, have decent setups to them. They all don't look like, these software names. Some of them are set up nice. Like some of the retail names I was looking at, they had decent setups there. If we can see some flow, not the biggest retail fan, but anything that hasn't. Micron has looked good. All these semis, George, all of them. This Micron too didn't squeeze as much as the others. So you see, like these pullbacks here, I think that's where we want to look at this thing. And she caught some flow there. Another one I like is TXN. I didn't look at that today. Let's see. Yeah, similar. Texas Instruments. That's another one. But if you can, try to stick to buying red. Yeah, for me, because I got enough on my plate, I solely, for the most part, there's some exceptions, but I'm swing trading only off red. I'll day trade off the juice and everything else. But I've always had a lot more success buying, playing sweepers off red. Here's another one, guys. Anybody have this thing still? Everybody's out of it? This SE? Put selling there today. Anybody have any left of this SE? Everybody's out of it, huh? Jesus. Paul, I don't have it in front of me, but I'll post it in the room and on private Twitter, the squeezometer. She's somewhere in the 60s. She could be, she could be hot the last half hour. It wouldn't surprise me, but it's up there. Oh, the Niner is the mark on TradingView. That's the sequential 9. Sequential 13-9, whatever they call them. Yeah, so this SE, that another good thing about this rally, most of you option players don't appreciate it, but you equity guys out there, a lot of you guys like to play the smaller name stocks. We've been seeing some decent action in these smaller names. You know, there was 2017 on, we would ignore the action. That's how bad it was in some of these low price names. Now, some of the better action has been like this SE, the action there was as legit as it gets. You know, the stock was what, $11? You know, the weed place, I don't care bubble or not, that action that came in initially was legit, right? The cron sweeper activity is legit, was legit the whole time. You know? So, and look at the moves. Look at the moves in these things. Right? We talk about like that NIO. That thing catches real flow. Catches real flow. So, yeah, some of them have moved better than others. But don't ignore any of these cheaper price names, especially when the action's there. You know, when you hear me carrying on about the action, you definitely want to pay attention to it. You know, definitely. Just again, the options might be a little tricky. So you might have to take that approach, like I tell you guys. What the hell? Put in what you're willing to lose, type of thing. You know, get some time, put in what you're willing to lose, and you take that approach. And sometimes you get lucky. I mean, if you took that approach with Cron, okay, and you didn't have much, you know, you weren't over your head as far as risk, you might have given it a leash, and this thing went from 7 to 23 on you. Sometimes you get really lucky in these things. I told you guys the story, my career. If it wasn't for small caps, I don't know if I'd be here. I bullshit you not. That's where I made all my money in my career. Well, I'm looking at my screen for any other stuff here. CCJ has had action. I haven't really followed it, but it has had action. Oh, nice. So you got a little pullback. That's where I would look. I was ready to say never buy CCJ or for rally. Wait for a pullback. You got a pullback. This is the name we went over on one of those webinars, remember? If you buy up here, get ready for this. You buy up here, get ready for this. You buy up here, you got this. So now look, I would keep an eye on action in this name if you're eyeing it. I get this confused. What's the other CC name that catches a lot of action? They just reported. Actually had a good quarter with the crazy CEO. The crazy CEO. You guys know. CLF. Thank you. That too. Look at that. Nice move. Nice move. All right, guys. Yeah, CCJ is uranium. Yeah, I personally, I'm not a big fan of trading these things. I traded the CCJ a few times. You know, like Freeport. I think the last time I traded it was off of flow that I had no choice but to trade it. But I'm not a big fan of these names because they're like pulling teeth, you know? It's like pulling teeth, these names. I'm trying to see anything else left. Anybody have any other names to add that they're stalking that maybe haven't gone nuts yet? Yeah, Abi sentiment is pretty hot. We'll see how it looks when they update tonight. But the squeezometer was up in the mid 60s. The put the calls, I didn't want to look at them. I didn't trade anything from like 2 o'clock on, Hobby. That's how disgusting sentiment was. I put the guns back in the holsters after 2 o'clock. Because I was worried just in case they want to catch them, if they catch them. What a CRM, what a machine that is. Oh, how about the banks? What are they looking like? Let me see. Have they took a breather here? Yeah. All right. The bank's a little breather. See? This is nice. This is what's supposed to happen here. All right, so we'll see. That's my game plan anyway. We'll see any new action, fresh action. Wait for some fresh names to get hit, especially into weakness. And we take it day by day here. But as long as they keep sweeping, we got to lean bullish. Block out the noise, that's for sure. There's a lot of noise out there. A lot of noise. I don't know if the bears still have a mouth to talk, but there's a lot of noise. A lot of noise. All right, guy. PYX. That sounds familiar. Where did I know that from? PYX. Oh, wait. This is weed or something? PYX. I think we saw a buyer in this, believe it or not. PYX. Yeah, nice move there. Old tobacco switching to weed. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Crazy. What those other weed names do today? I know ACB had earnings. Yeah, that still looks good. AFA. Oh, they look the same, huh? Yeah, CTXS, probably one of the better looking software names still left. You needed a little breather here off this rally. Well, if you wanted to look at it, and you got it now. You got earnings not till the end of April, so you got time left. Looks good. Looks good. We'll see if they get crazy on it too. Maybe they come after. They've been buying. They've been accumulating the CTXS throughout this whole move here, from the bottom all the way up into the sideways. GLW, I think she got hot, right? GLW. Well, yeah, not too cooked, not too bad. Post earnings too, right? Not bad. Yeah, there's been flow there. There's been flow there. My top watch list name. Nothing really set up, Sean. Nothing really set up. I mean, for the most part, they were all the recent action, and a lot of them are pretty much gone now. CTXS would be one. Again, EW, big day again today. That's gone. The DHI gone now. Any software name, other software name, RNG, they're all gone. I mean, ZS on dips up until earnings. I think they're going to run this thing into earnings, but you have earnings in the way. There's nothing really left, Sean. Aside from that, like the top names that were clean, Sean, without earnings involved, that were set up off initial activity. You had DHI, EW. What was the other one I just mentioned? Oh, Sony. That's a little bit higher. Came in a little bit today. Sony. Yeah, there's nothing really left. Conagra, right? She finally went to, well, finally, it didn't take too long. This is earnings though. SIG. See, this interests me here. The problem is earnings, though. But you can keep an eye on it. I don't know if you're interested in it. See, maybe if you see some juice coming in, or if you see some action, Sean. This is Sig the Jeweler. This stock got destroyed. And you got a nice little niner, pretty much trying to nail out lows, if you can see that on the bottom there. So what I look for an uptick in sweeper activity to give me a heads up that they're getting ready for a squeeze. We got that. Some decent action. The problem is the action catches earnings. That's the only problem. Yeah, Gordon, that's the new date on the SIG? I think they moved the earnings, right? April 3rd? April 3rd. So you got a little more time. Yeah, double check the earnings there on this SIG, anybody who's looking at it, before you start playing this thing and they announce. But yeah, if there was no earnings there, this is right up my alley. Right up my alley. But I'm watching it. Even for day trades, I'm watching it. And that's about it, Sean. Any new names, any new names you see me put on that top bets list at the end of the day, they go on my watch list if I'm not already in them, Macy's caught a little order today. Small order, but looks interesting. But you have earnings, right? I thought. Oh, yeah, you have earnings here. You have earnings. Otherwise, Sean, you bring a good point. The other thing that is instantly on my watch list, any name that's off earnings that is red is on my watch list automatically. That's the beauty of this earnings season. So if you have any interest in a name that reported earnings and they sold it off, I would look for flow. Yeah, that's without a doubt, Sean. That's, again, one of the reasons, and it's rare for me, that I was excited about this earnings season. Like, if you guys like the software names, I don't know if you can see flow in them, but you got two tomorrow, this Hubs and Twilio with some red. You got a little sweeper activity. Bing, bang, boom. Yes, Gordon. Yep. And now, the beauty of it now, that, like Gordon saying, that's how they would play the software names. They would use it as an entry. Now, even the garbage out there, and what I mean by garbage, stuff that's been wrecked, that weakness is being used as an entry there if they're not gapping them up. So you had Caterpillar, again, the first semis that reported that were down. We talked about some of the building names and stuff like that. How's that URI doing? Look at that. That's a nice move now. See URI? Like, that's a big trade war name too. Oh, EA. And I didn't even play the EA, but EA was God almighty. So, but good point, good call out, X. So like EA, right? The news was a disaster, their earnings, a disaster. But the stock has been a disaster. So if you see, the tide's starting to change and a little bit of flow coming in, I don't know if you're going to get this type of move, but you could get a trade out of it. This was ridiculous. Look at this. Oh, my God. All right, guys. I'll let you off to your dinner. All right. Again, keep any weakness, pause, earnings weakness. I think that's where the opportunity is for now off sweeper activity. And just be careful, chasing some of the hot stuff, especially when sentiment's a little too frisky. All right. Be good, Paul. Be good, everybody. Enjoy the night. Good luck the rest of the week.